I have lived the problems I'm trying to solve deeply. That line really resonated with me today. I had the opportunity to meet Leila Farschian. She is a special educator and also a BCBA. In this podcast episode, you will learn her journey to becoming a BCBA. She started out as a paraprofessional, and I love to hear how people have been on that journey to certification. She is a doer, and she is not only helping people here in the United States, she also is the founder of the Global Schoolhouse Project. And she talks a lot about helping others and closing the digital divide. She owns her own clinic. She also started ABA Toolbox. And we talk about the importance of working together. One of my favorite themes here at ABA Speech, where BCBAs, OTs, PTs, SLPs, we all work together to help maximize client outcomes. How she started a curriculum, how she started scheduling, billing, and really started ABA Toolbox to help at her own clinic. And she's helping so many districts, and soon is going to open that up for speech language pathologists as well. I know that this won't be the last time that I talk to Leila. She is really just a wealth of information. And I think that this will help to inspire you in the daily work that you're doing with your students. So let's get into this conversation. I'm Rose Griffin, a speech therapist, board-certified behavior analyst, and founder of ABA Speech. It wasn't all that long ago that I felt overwhelmed by providing therapy for my autistic students and any students who were not yet speaking. Fast forward through many doubts, tears, research, and courses, and you will see the framework that I use today and share with over 60,000 readers weekly. One that will help you support your students and feel more confident in the process. I created the ABA Speech podcast to give you simple, step-by-step strategies to help you reach all of your students wherever they are on their communication journeys. If you're a speech therapist, BCBA, RBT student, or parent who's looking to help all students develop a way to communicate with the world, you are in the right place, friend. Let's get started. Welcome to the show. We have with us Leila Farschian. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And you are just doing such amazing work in the field. I was reading over your bio. Your work is new to me. And I was like, wow, there's so many things that we could talk about. And I'm excited to kind of dig into the impact that you're having on just the field where you're at, but really in a global way too, which I think is really cool. And I can't wait to dig into that. But I was reading your bio, and it looks like you're both a special educator and BCBA. So I'm always curious how people get started into the field of ABA. I feel like ABA is a newer field, comparatively speaking. I'm a speech therapist and BCBA, and so it's newer compared to being a speech therapist. But tell us your journey and how you got started and how you became a BCBA.
I absolutely will. But before I do, I want to say, Rose, you definitely are a very unique bird. And I think what you have done becoming a speech therapist and in BCBA, only 500 or 600 in the world. This is just such a gift to our community and what it brings and does and enhances. I think it speaks volumes. So I was actually started off as a paraprofessional in a school, volunteering in high school, and really enjoyed working. And so I got into just being a paraprofessional, and then later on went in for a master's in special education, dual BCBA. And the CABAS model is the science of teaching. So all BCBAs are also teachers who graduate from that program, which really made sense for me. It aligned for me. And I really did start off in schools before I started my private clinic in 2008.
Oh, neat. Okay. I love that. So you liked it so much. Now, when you were a parapro, did you work with the BCBA, or did you see applied behavior analysis in action, or this particular program you were in? So when you graduated, you were a special education teacher and also a BCBA. Is that how it worked? That's nice.
Yes, it is how it worked. And, it was not a straight path. It was a journey where ABA, like you said, is a newer field. It wasn't well defined. BCBAs in 1997 to 2000 were a rarity, and I became a BCBA in 2003. So I was a long behavior therapist, or ABA therapist is what we called it back then.
Right.
So
Right.
I think our field has really changed and metamorphosized and evolved over the course of the time that I've had the pleasure of being involved in it.
Wow, you've really seen a change. Okay, that's interesting. I did some podcasts with BDS and I had Dr. Stephen Eversole on a podcast. And we were just talking about how when he used to start in the field, he would go to conferences and he would see Skinner. I mean, Skinner was at like at least one of the conferences. And we were just talking about how the field has changed so much. I've been certified as a BCBA about 12 years and I've just seen such a major shift. It's interesting to see, and with that's pros and cons, right? But it's been interesting to see kind of how the field has changed and just grown at such a rate that's alarming and amazing.
It's alarming. I think some of the greatest shifts that I have experienced personally is how we are put in the schools to be a educator, part of the
Right.
educational team, part of the child study team, and then put into other settings and clinics, agencies, homes, even hospitals as healthcare professionals. So we wear both hats, and it can become an interesting shift in who we are and how we serve. And both require different things from us, very different reporting, different levels of collaboration. And I wonder if speech therapists also have that as well when they're part of the child study team versus a clinic type team.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've actually been doing, just from me having this podcast, and I am actually a treating clinician 2 days a week as a school-based SLP in my kids' own school. So it's so different. And I've worked in non-behavioral, non-public programs that in essence were ABA programs. I say non-public on Instagram, so I don't get hate messages, but not, for students who couldn't be educated appropriately in a public school. So then the funding source for that school is the public school system. And so it is so different. But something we've been doing at ABA Speech, because I have this membership for speech therapists and BCBAs to get their CEUs. We have been doing some school-based BCBA ACE trainings. And I will tell you what, those have been extremely, extremely popular because it is totally different. We have our ethical guidelines. I used to teach the ethics class here at Kent State for future BCBAs, and we know how important those ethical guidelines are. And then you try to go into a public school and it's not a clinic, so you can't control all the variables, right? And it's so different. It's almost like two different professions depending on where you're operating. And it seems like maybe with your clinic, you can see some of those differences that are taking place for professionals.
Absolutely, for sure. And, we have in our clinic schools that we serve, and they have different requirements as well as insurance has a very, very specific. And I think when insurance really came into the ABA world, thanks to Lori Ubnum and what
Yes.
efforts did around 2007 and 2008, we accepted insurance in 2015. And it really, I think, over the course of time with the RBT regulations and the BCBA regulations really shaped and gave color and shape to the BCBA credentials and what it really means. And now that we're no longer an international resource as the BCBA, that also shapes things, where I think speech has kind of just been it has held its own, and it's, something that has just been just like occupational therapy and the fields, it's held its own in a very solid way throughout. We're still shape shifting and
Yes.
community, and it's fine. That's fine. That's exciting, in some ways. I mean, I do think maybe for those reasons, ABA has become somewhat had to defend itself and what it offers sometimes, because it's full of different types of I would say ingredients, and I love the collaboration between speech, OT, PT, and ABA. I think the value-based care that it lends itself to is extremely effective for enhancing treatment when everybody is in the same trajectory, walking the same trajectory, and making the learner at the center. So I think that's been where my experience has led itself to. I just see so much success there for children.
Yes. Yes, and I always train on that and say it's not us versus them, it's we. How do we get to we? And actually, I had Lori on the podcast. She is a dynamo and just like so friendly. And she told the whole story of how she literally went to every single state. And I don't think people, and speech therapists too, don't really understand. It seems like yeah, BCBAs, when I first got certified, there weren't many, and there are less than 500 people that are duly certified, but it just seems like it's everywhere now. And there's a big piece to that, right? Is the insurance reform. And I think it's hard for people to understand that. That's great. Yeah, that collaboration piece is so important. Tell us a little bit about, I was really excited about hearing, I would love to hear more about this Global Schoolhouse Project. I know you're the founder. So can you tell us about that organization and about the work that you do there?
Sure. That was inspired by my uncle, actually. And he actually started 30 schools and 3 hospitals with his donations and inspired me so deeply. So I started Global Schoolhouse Project and was also inspired by International Health Awareness Network to work on a project called Closing the Digital Divide. Because right now, that's a UN initiative and UNICEF's mission right now. And I think what's happening is that that's the new inequality. That is, what we're battling against on a global level. So we worked, we're doing an amazing project through International Health Awareness Network in conjunction with Global Schoolhouse to close the digital divide. We went into Johannesburg and South Africa in November and brought the digital devices to 4 different schools. 2 of them were special needs schools. 2 of them were just general ed. Mm-hmm. We found some of the gaps are really about, how do we, they have the devices now. How do we go ahead and also teach the educators to use those devices, and what applications do they use, and how can they feel successful? So it's not just about technology. It's about obviously the use of technology. The education revolved around the best practices for technology to maximize in situations where there's 1 teacher to 70 children. How do they access those devices? How do they use them when? Right. So logistics come into play. Or in the special needs school that we were at, Kamagugu School, it was 1 out of 17. And even that is a ratio that is, some of those children need 1-to-1. Right. We have that luxury here in the United States, in some states and some not. Right. And some districts, school districts, and some not. But, I think we really identified some gaps. With the project is just near and dear to my heart. And I think that it's just the beginning of something very, very important. And I'd love to talk about it more and more as it unfolds.
Yeah, that's neat. That's really great. Yeah, I think, device abandonment, that's a big thing we talk about here is like, even if it's an AAC device for students, it's just that people need ongoing continue support. It's not just like, here's the tech and then we're going to leave. So it sounds like nice that you have some kind of continuation of support, because I feel like technology for some people, if they're not used to it, it can feel scary and they feel overwhelmed by it. And then for you to feel overwhelmed by the adult, you're not going to share it with the child because you don't feel confident in your own skills. Did you find that some people were hesitant to use new technology?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just the technology, the logistics of turning it on, updating it, charging, starting with, and then what applications do we use? The enthusiasm's there, the initiative's there, the collaboration's there. So that's going to drive the success of the project. But I think as long as we identify the gaps and start to really address them one by one and set up expectations that this will be a project that requires multi-layer support to succeed, that's how I think we can proceed with it step by step. So we're excited about that. And I think the enthusiasm there and the initiative has just been great, and a couple of the schools are flagship schools. So we hope the goal for International Health Awareness Network is 100 schools. So we start with 4 and we move forward that way.
Yeah, that's neat. I love that. Very cool. I have one of my best friends owns a really cool center here in Ohio called KidsLink, and they have a global division. And so I think once a year they go to another country and they team up with a school and they train people. And it's just, I think if you don't talk to people who live in other countries, you don't understand that even for some families that I talk to, it's hard for them to find a speech therapist who understands how to support autistic learners. And that's not every place, but people really do struggle with finding services. And so, and that's tough. Or it's just not as regulated. Like I used to do these consults with this amazing BCBA in Pakistan, and she was a mom to an autistic child and a typical child, and she had her own center. But there were a lot of people who had centers, right? And then it's hard for the consumer to know like which is the center I should choose, And so some were being run by people that were not BCBAs and things like that. And so that's hard from a consumer standpoint. On top of that, you also created ABA Toolbox. So I'm excited. I love your entrepreneurial spirit because that's who I am at my core. So can you tell us exactly, I guess, how you got the idea to start ABA Toolbox? Because I feel like it's always hard to start something, and then tell us about exactly what it is.
Sure. So over the years, I had started 5 programs for individuals with autism in public schools, the 5th being Learner's Compass, my private practice, in 2008. And I'd gathered quite a bit. I gathered a curriculum that I had devised, over 1,000 lessons and all of these materials. And I thought, what am I going to do with all of this? So I said, let me start to automate it. It started off with just automating the curriculum and making it available to school districts nearby who really actually needed it and were reaching out for it. And as it started to just really unfold, again, it's a step-by-step type of thing it started to run my private practice, Learner's Compass, through like a data collection method. And I had the privilege of the CABAS training, where it is the most effective, that I've encountered, one of the most effective ways of really, it enhances treatment results by 4 to 6 times if learning units are accounted for, if we have a particular pace, if providers are well trained, right? All of the different scientific research-based methods that it offers, if we employ them, they can be very effective, right? So because of all the research, I thought, let me start to automate some of these things. And it started to be extremely well received. And at the same time, it's a challenge. Technology and a clinician merge. Yes. The unique combination, right? So, but I have lived the problems I'm trying to solve very deeply. And I think that is a good thing. And so over the course of time, it became more and more, so let's add this feature. Let's also do billing. Let's also do scheduling. So, because I wanted to have just a very seamless process of running my practice, not have 5 different systems that I'm using, 2 different logins, 2 different ways of understanding, different types of processes. And also it was important to bring the entire team together. We launched it March 3rd. March 13th, we went into lockdown for COVID.
Oh, dear.
It was up and running in 1 week, fully operational. And so it was very synchronistic, the timing of things. Yeah. And, sometimes I think back and I'm like, why did I start this? But really been, I would say, a humbling, amazing process. And I think what we are trying to do is unique in the sense that we want to bring a multidisciplinary approach within the system so that the child is in a center of care, and in a cohesive way, all the therapists can come out of their silos and work together hand in hand so that the child can, through the life cycle of its treatment, have all of these individuals closely care for them. And all of that would be automated, right? Not that, we have to meet on Zoom every week, although that's good. We want to be able to bring everybody into a cohesive system. And within that cohesive system, not dictate the type of practice that they have. Because within, they would have, obviously, the format that they want to practice under.
Okay, so ABA Toolbox. So if you have a membership to ABA Toolbox, is it a group membership? So is it the customers are clinics, or are individuals able to also join as well?
Well, it's a per learner model.
Per learner. Okay, it's a per.
Part. I mean, the school districts that we service might say, we have X number of learners, and then, and we also we're not behavior therapy ABA only. We have students who only need maybe just behavior supports or other types of supports. So all kinds of packages is what I'm saying. But it is learner.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. So with it, so you have a curriculum. So these are these like programs? Like when you were a treating clinician, you were writing programs like a labeling program or following two-step directions program. And so then you have like what the SD or direction would be, and then like examples potentially?
It's about 1,000 or so programs.
Wow.
And yes, and the way that it is broken up and divided up is extremely easy to follow. People can customize them as well and add to the library. And I think it creates a very seamless workflow for the clinicians.
Well, that's nice. Okay, I love that. Yeah, that's a great idea. And I love your line about I have lived the problems I'm trying to solve deeply, because I feel like that's how my mom used to always say, that's how businesses are created, is you have a problem and you decide that's it. I'm solving this and I'm going to solve it for myself and for others. So, okay, I love that. That's a great idea. And I like the idea of just being able to be seamless so that potentially if there's a district that has a speech therapist, maybe an OT, a behavior support person, they could potentially all be on a learner's caseload to see what is happening or what programs are being worked on and things like that. That is nice. The talking live is also great, but sometimes it's nice just to get a snapshot of like what's going on with the student. So, okay, that sounds really, really great. So that's a way that, so do you have customers who are in multiple disciplines potentially utilizing the same system for a student?
Yes, they're mostly in schools. When we venture into clinics, we'll have to push out the update for the multidisciplinary, which is the one that we're working on right now.
Oh, neat.
That's exciting. Mm-hmm.
I can't believe that this all launched right before COVID. That's really like, that must have been an emotional roller coaster, because actually I've had my business. I just looked it up because I was applying for something. It's almost tax day as we're doing this episode, but I was like, oh, wow, I've had my business 8 years, but my business really started to take off in 2020 and people just really needed a lot of resources. So that was probably an emotional roller coaster time for you because you had worked so hard on this, but it was probably something that people potentially were utilizing because we were doing so much teletherapy and on the computer.
Right, right. And I think what happens is that the systems that I have seen out there are either health tech and they have just data collection, or they're just ed tech. And so what we wanted to do is take special ed tech and health tech, combine it into one in a seamless flow, and also bring in those research-based automations to enhance treatment by 4 to 6 times.
Yeah.
I think that's where that's the mission, is that enhancement of treatment is key. That's all because of the data and the actual prompting to all the different prompts that it offers within the system. So it's an interesting one.
Yeah, that's great. And so then is your clinic also obviously using ABA Toolbox as a software to use?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that makes so much sense. Yeah, that's great. I love that. Well, this has been amazing. I love all the innovation that you're doing for the field. So thank you for your work. And where can people find out more about you and your work?
So if you just visit us at abatoolbox.com, book a meeting. I'm happy to speak with anybody just to dive deeper into it and talk about how it can help them or customize the system for them. So I would love to have those conversations. And thank you so much for giving me the space and time to talk. I think speaking with you, it's a pleasure because you've impacted so many lives and at the same time really just dove into both fields and try to merge, bridge those gaps. So I think that's much appreciated.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. It was great to connect.
Yeah, absolutely.